She doesn't miss you the way you think she does. Let that sink in for a second. Most men assume that when they're not around, their woman is sitting by the window, quietly longing for them, replaying old memories, counting the days. But the truth? It's more complex, and in some cases, more unsettling than that. Because what a woman feels during your absence depends heavily on what she experiences when you're present. If your presence in her life is powerful, secure, emotionally steady, and fulfilling, then your absence may feel like something is missing. Yes. But if your presence is inconsistent, emotionally unavailable, passive, or dismissive, then your absence might actually feel like relief, space, breathing room, even clarity. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it's one that needs to be taken whole if you really want to understand women on a deeper level. Today, we're going to talk about something most men never pause to consider: what actually goes through a woman's mind when you're not there, what she feels, what she questions, what she starts to realize, and why your absence doesn't always create longing. Sometimes it creates distance. This isn't about blaming men or bashing women. It's about giving you the insight to show up better, not just for her, but for yourself. Because whether you're in a relationship, taking space, or wondering why she's not chasing you anymore, this conversation is for you. We're going to break it down clearly, one layer at a time. No fluff, no nonsense, just the raw, eye-opening truth. Welcome to the channel, fellas. If you're the kind of guy who wants to understand women, not just impress them, you're in the right place. Let's get into what really happens during your absence. 1. She notices the emotional gap you left behind. When you're not around, something interesting happens in a woman's emotional world. She becomes very aware of what you brought to the table emotionally, or what you didn't. This isn't about just missing your physical presence. It's not, oh, I miss cuddling, or I miss his cologne. Sure, those things might come up, but they're surface level. What really hits her in the quiet of your absence is the emotional weight, or lack of it, you carried in the relationship. Let's keep it real. Women are emotionally tuned in. Whether you were present, distant, emotionally expressive, or shut down, she felt it. She may not have always called it out, or even been fully conscious of it at the time, but once you're gone, even for a short while, it becomes clear. Imagine this. You leave for a few days, maybe you're traveling for work, or just need space. At first, she misses your routine, the texts, the little check-ins. But then, she starts thinking, really thinking. And that's when the internal conversation begins. Does she feel calmer without the tension she couldn't quite put her finger on when you were around? Does she realize she doesn't feel anxious checking her phone every 5 minutes now? Or on the flip side, does she feel emotionally cold, like a heater was suddenly switched off in the room? Either way, what she notices is the emotional impact you had or didn't have, the gap you left behind. And this is key. The emotional gap isn't necessarily about missing you. It's about feeling the absence of your emotional investment. If you were emotionally present, connected, and involved, that absence feels like something valuable is missing. But if you were physically there but emotionally checked out, the silence now just feels easier. This is where a lot of guys get blindsided. They think, she's probably missing me so much right now, when in reality, she's asking herself why she didn't feel this level of peace sooner. So, if your absence reveals peace instead of pain, that's not a sign she's heartless. That's a sign you were already emotionally gone before you physically left. The gap that shows up when you're not there tells her everything she needs to know about the quality of your presence when you were. And here's the thing most men don't get. Presence isn't just about showing up, texting good morning, or being physically available. It's about how emotionally safe, seen, and connected she feels when you're around. So when you leave, she feels the truth. And sometimes that truth hits harder than the silence. 2. She starts comparing peace to presence. Here's something that might sting a little. Sometimes your absence feels better than your presence. Now that doesn't mean she hates you, it doesn't mean she never cared. What it means is that when you're not around, She finally has the space to feel what she couldn't when things were happening in real time. And one of the biggest realizations women come to in your absence is this: I feel more peaceful now. Let's unpack that. When a woman is in a relationship with a man, especially one that's emotionally confusing, inconsistent, or just mentally draining, she doesn't always notice the toll it's taking. She's wrapped up in the day-to-day, managing, adjusting, waiting for things to change, maybe even hoping you'll notice that she's slowly running on emotional fumes. But the second you're gone, even if it's just temporary, everything gets quieter. And in that quiet, she feels her own nervous system relax. She's not waiting for a text. She's not interpreting tone. She's not navigating tension or emotional walls. She's not overthinking every little word. And that calm, that becomes addictive. She starts to realize that your presence wasn't just physical, it came with energy. Maybe it was the pressure to perform emotionally, maybe it was tension that never got resolved, or maybe it was the weight of being with someone who was only half there, half the time. Whatever it was, now that it's gone, she sees the contrast clearly. Peace versus presence. This is the comparison she starts making. Does he bring calm or does he bring chaos? Do I feel safe when he's around, or do I feel like I'm constantly bracing for something? If her nervous system is calmer without you, that's not a small realization. It's a wake-up call. And this is where the emotional distance begins. Because once a woman experiences peace, real, internal peace, it's hard for her to give that up, even for love, even for history. Even for a man she used to want more than anything. This doesn't mean she's cold-hearted or ungrateful. It just means she's recognizing her emotional baseline, and she's realizing she likes the version of herself who isn't in fight or flight mode. This is the part where a lot of men confuse silence with loyalty. They think, she hasn't said anything, so we're good. But in reality, she's quietly comparing the life she had with you to the life she has without you. And peace is starting to win. It's not about whether you were a bad guy. It's about whether being around you felt good. Because the hard truth is, when your absence gives her more peace than your presence ever did, it's only a matter of time before she starts asking herself why she ever tolerated the noise in the first place. 3. She replays the good and the bad. When you're gone, her mind starts sorting through everything, all the highs and all the lows. And trust me, it doesn't just replay the sweet moments, it revisits the whole emotional roller coaster. And that replay? It's where a lot of men lose ground without even knowing it. Here's what happens. The silence creates space for reflection, not the kind where she's sitting in a corner crying over pictures. Number. It's a mental sorting process, one that's much more powerful and much more permanent. She starts reviewing the relationship in her head like a movie. She rewinds to the times when things felt good, when you made her laugh, when she felt desired, when you made her feel like she was the only one. Those memories hit strong at first, but then so do the ones where she felt invisible, misunderstood, or emotionally drained. And here's the part men often miss. Bad memories echo louder in silence. Why? Because they come with unresolved emotions. And what's unresolved always wants attention. So now she's thinking about that argument where you shut down instead of listening. She's remembering the time you told her she was overreacting when she was just trying to open up. She's replaying how distant you became when she needed you to show up most. And all of those things start to stack up. But it's not just the bad moments themselves. It's what those moments made her feel. That feeling becomes the lasting impression. Because women don't just remember what you did, they remember how it made them feel. That's the part that lingers. Now here's where it gets real. In your absence, she's not just replaying the past. She's analyzing it. She's reevaluating it. She's asking questions like, was I really happy or just attached? Did he value me or just tolerate me? Was I seen or was I just filling a role in his life? And once those questions start, the emotional tone of the relationship starts shifting in her memory. The good moments don't disappear, but they get balanced by the bad. And sometimes, the bad starts tipping the scale. This is when the emotional disconnect begins to deepen. Not because she's angry, not because she's suddenly rewriting history, but because she's finally viewing it without filters. See, when you're physically around, those day-to-day interactions can soften the hard edges of past mistakes. A smile, a joke, a random compliment, it all adds comfort. But when you're not there, those buffers are gone. All she has is memory, and memory can be ruthless when it's left alone. So, while you're thinking everything is on pause, she's actually in a quiet evaluation period. And when a woman starts emotionally detaching, it usually begins here, with the slow internal replay of everything she felt and everything she didn't feel when you were around. That reflection changes things, not overnight, but for good. 4. She tests your absence in small ways. Here's what most men never notice. When you're not around, a woman often tests your absence. And she doesn't do it in loud or obvious ways. She does it subtly, quietly, almost like she's feeling around in the dark to see what's really there. This isn't about manipulation or mind games, it's about emotional clarity. She wants to know, what does life feel like without you? Will you even notice if she pulls back a little? Does your connection hold up when she stops doing all the extra? And this is how it usually begins. She stops initiating texts first. She takes a little longer to respond. She doesn't bring up that inside joke you both used to laugh about. She doesn't remind you of plans. You either remember or you don't. At first glance, it might seem like nothing has changed. Maybe you think she's just busy or giving you space. But to her, these small moves are part of a much deeper question. What happens when I stop carrying the emotional weight? That's the real test. Because in a lot of relationships, women are the emotional drivers. They check in. They maintain the vibe. They bring the warmth, the affection, the glue. And when that effort starts to feel one-sided or taken for granted, they'll stop. Not out of anger, but out of curiosity. What happens if I don't hold this together anymore? She's not expecting fireworks or grand gestures. She's looking for presence, for effort, for reaction. And when she doesn't get it, or worse, when you don't even notice, that silence speaks volumes. You may be thinking, if something was wrong, she should just tell me. But the reality is, women often test before they talk. They need to feel whether you're emotionally in tune, not just waiting for instructions. So during your absence, she'll quietly observe, do you reach out without her prompting you? Do you ask how she's really doing, or just check in when it's convenient? Do you show consistency when she stops reminding you to be present? And what she learns during this test can shift everything. If you pass, if you notice the small changes, if you lean in instead of pulling away, she feels emotionally seen, respected, valuable. But if you fail, if the silence stretches on, if the effort dies with her absence, it confirms something painful. She was carrying the emotional weight alone. And once she realizes that, it becomes hard to unknow. Men often think the biggest danger is her meeting someone else. But really, the deeper danger is this: her realizing she functions better without having to wait for you to show up emotionally. That's the test. And whether you realize it or not, you're in it. 5. She begins to redefine her needs. Here's where the shift really begins. When you're not around, a woman finally has the emotional space to redefine what she actually wants and needs, without being influenced by your presence, your energy, or your reactions. When you're in the picture, even if things are rocky, she might still be operating from a place of compromise. Maybe she's been putting up with a lack of emotional depth, brushing off her need for communication, or downplaying how important quality time is to her. Not because she doesn't care, but because she's adjusting to what you're willing to give. But the moment you're gone, whether that's a breakup, a break, or just distance, her mind clears. And what comes next is one of the most powerful things a woman can experience. She starts getting honest with herself. She asks herself questions like, what do I actually need to feel fulfilled in a relationship? Have I been asking for too much, or just settling for too little? Do I really want to keep trying with someone who doesn't even see what I need? And here's what's eye-opening. She doesn't just reflect on the relationship, you. she starts reflecting on herself. She begins reconnecting with parts of her identity that she may have dimmed down just to maintain the connection. Maybe she realizes she craved more emotional depth, more physical affection, more intellectual connection, but got used to going without it. Or maybe she starts to see that she was operating in survival mode, holding back her voice, downplaying her needs, trying not to come across as needy, when really, she was just human. In one quiet moment, she might catch herself thinking, "I've been asking for scraps and calling it a meal." And that changes everything. Here's where it gets real for men. When a woman starts redefining her needs, she starts reevaluating if you even fit them anymore. It's not out of bitterness, it's out of clarity. She's no longer filtering her needs through the lens of what you can give. She's finally asking herself what she actually deserves. One day, she might be sitting at home, not crying, not overthinking, just breathing. And that clarity hits her. I don't want to keep fighting to be understood. I want to be with someone who already sees me. And she starts building that new standard, brick by brick. She doesn't send a dramatic message. She doesn't make a big scene. She just changes. And if or when you come back expecting the old version of her, you might find she's not there anymore. Because absence doesn't just create longing, it creates definition. And once she redefines her needs, the bar doesn't come back down. 6. She builds emotional independence. When you're gone, something powerful and often unexpected happens. She starts depending on herself emotionally in a way she hasn't in a long time. And that changes the entire dynamic. See, a lot of women in relationships take on the role of emotional nurturer. They support, they listen, they care, they give. Sometimes they even downplay their own emotional needs just to keep the peace. But when you're absent, either emotionally or physically, she has no choice but to shift that energy inward. And here's the key. The longer she goes without leaning on you emotionally, the less she needs to. At first, it might be uncomfortable for her. Maybe she wants to text you when something exciting happens, or when she has a bad day, or when she feels vulnerable. But if you're not there, or you're distant, she stops reaching. And little by little, she starts turning inward instead. She begins processing her emotions with herself. She leans on her friends more. She invests in her hobbies again. She gets reacquainted with her own inner voice. She realizes she can calm herself down, lift herself up, and regulate her emotions without needing you to do it for her, or worse, waiting around hoping that you might. This is where her emotional muscles start growing, and the stronger they get, the less she feels the pull to chase connection or validation from you. Because now she's giving that to herself, not in a bitter, I don't need anyone kind of way, but in a calm, grounded, self-aware kind of way. That emotional independence is liberating. And here's what men don't always understand. Once a woman becomes emotionally self-sufficient, she stops tolerating emotional half-effort from others. She's no longer waiting to be chosen, seen, or fixed. She's already choosing herself, and that creates a completely different version of her. The version who doesn't chase closure. The version who doesn't need reassurance. The version who doesn't cling to potential. She's not cold. She's just centered. She's not angry. She's just over it. And the more emotionally independent she becomes, the more she looks back at who she was with you and thinks, damn, I was giving too much of myself to someone who gave me so little in return. This is where men often feel blindsided. You think, she switched up out of nowhere, when really, she just grew out of waiting for something that never came. Emotional independence isn't built on revenge or resentment. It's built on the realization that relying on someone who isn't consistent is a constant drain. And once she's filled her own cup, she has no desire to beg someone else to pour into it. So when you come back expecting the same dynamic, you might find she's no longer willing to play that role. She didn't just survive your absence, she evolved in it. 7. She doesn't miss you, she outgrows you. This is the part that most men never expect, not because it's dramatic, but because it's subtle. One day you might be thinking, she's probably missing me like crazy, when in reality, she's not crying, not texting, not even trying to get your attention anymore. She's just moved on, not to someone else, to a better version of herself. That's the truth most guys don't want to face. She didn't stop loving you overnight. She just started loving herself more. And the more she did, the less space there was for a man who didn't meet her emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. See, missing someone is tied to the idea that what you had was truly valuable, consistently. And if the relationship was inconsistent, confusing, or draining, she doesn't miss it. She outgrows it. And here's where it's time for a little tough love. Too many men mistake a woman's silence for loyalty, or her lack of confrontation as patience. But in reality, she's already done the work emotionally, quietly, internally, and by the time you notice she's changed, she's been gone for a while. This is where you need to take a hard look at yourself, not in a self-hating way, but in a real, honest way. Ask yourself, did you take her emotional presence for granted? Did you show up only when it was convenient? Did you assume she'd always be there because she always had been? If the answer to any of those is yes, then it's not about beating yourself up. It's about waking the hell up. Because growth doesn't come from regret, it comes from responsibility. A woman outgrows you when she no longer needs to prove her worth to you, when she realizes she doesn't need to convince, chase, or hold on. And when that happens, she doesn't send a long paragraph explaining it. She just stops investing, and you'll feel it, not because she blocks you, but because her energy is gone, her warmth is gone, her softness is gone, her emotional connection to you is gone. And here's what you need to understand. Her outgrowing you isn't punishment. It's the result of your lack of presence. Her absence isn't revenge, it's reality. You didn't lose her because she stopped loving you. You lost her because she started loving herself in ways you couldn't or didn't help her do. So if you're a man watching this and realizing that you've been passive in your presence, now is the time to change it. Not just to win her back, but to become the kind of man who doesn't have to be missed to be valued, because the truth is, if you don't grow with her, you'll watch her outgrow you. Here's the part most men never see coming. Your absence doesn't always create longing. It often creates clarity. And clarity changes everything. What a woman feels when you're gone is not always tied to love. It's tied to what you gave her, emotionally, mentally, and energetically, when you were there. If your presence brought chaos, tension, or indifference, don't expect your absence to create desire. Expect it to create distance. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes, the moment she stops missing you is the moment she finally meets herself again. That's what we've been talking about this whole time. She notices the emotional weight she carried alone. She compares the peace without you to the tension with you. She replays everything and sees it without filters. She stops chasing, starts reflecting. She redefines what she actually wants. She becomes emotionally stronger. And finally, she realizes she's grown past the version of herself that tolerated less than she deserved. This isn't about blaming men or glorifying women. It's about recognizing that every moment you're not present, truly present, you're either being missed or being forgotten. And which one it is depends on how you showed up when you had the chance. So now the real question is, what will your absence say about you? If this hit home for you, drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever experienced a woman slowly pulling away while you didn't even notice? Or maybe you're a woman watching this, nodding quietly because every word felt like your story. Either way, let's talk about it. And if you found value in this, don't forget to like, share, or send it to someone who needs to hear it, because silence doesn't always mean she's waiting. Sometimes it means she's already gone.